Well, good morning, everyone. My name is Christelle Coleman, and it's my unbelievable honor and privilege to host you today here at InsureTalk number 57. We're coming to you from Cape Town. It's a scorcher down here, and summer is definitely in the city. So for those of you who can do a beach day, maybe you can go off after our conference today. So I always get excited about the October InsureTalk episode because it means it's the end of the year for me from an InsureTalk perspective, because November is InsureTalk Live. That's hosted in Johannesburg. We have a few hundred in-person guests at the InsureTalk conference there, and the rest of us will be tuning in online. So I'll be telling you a little bit more about InsureTalk Live in November. But back to the business of the day. So the first two speakers on the lineup today is from our headline event partners, Elite Risk Acceptances. Elite is a wholly owned subsidiary of Old Mutual Insure. Now, Elite has been a friend of InsureTalk from day one. They have supported us throughout the years, and Tarina and team, we say thank you to you for your support. And talking of Tarina, she's up first. So I don't think there are many people in this industry who don't know Tarina, but let me do the honors. She's going to talk on a very interesting topic. The topic reads, the topic reads, every day can't be Saturday. I saw this and I was like, what is she on about this time again? Tarina is the MD and co-founder of Elite Risk Acceptances, wholly owned subsidiary of Old Mutual Insure. And she's got a fantastic team that she works with. She looks after the growth solutions for the wealthy individuals in the market. And she must make sure that the business is sustainable. She has a legal background, and actually where our paths crossed 24 years ago is when she joined my team at TRA, Thatch Risk Acceptances. So for 24 years in the non-life industry, she's a member of the Institute of Directors. She loves to travel, read, binge watch Netflix, and spend time with her friends and family. She's got 3 beautiful adult children and grandchildren, and she's going to talk to us about approaching retirement. So the topic is every day can't be Saturday, the transition from corporate employee to retiree, retirement, the challenges, stages, emotions, and proposed solutions. We thank you for being here today, Tarina, and we look forward to your insert.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for the lovely intro, Christelle. And a very good morning to every one of you, ladies and gentlemen. So firstly, I want to say a big thank you to InsureTalk for inviting us and for being so kind to indulge me in talking about feelings this time. So now, before I starting getting into the nitty-gritty of things, I want a quick disclaimer. I know absolutely nothing about retirement planning or investments. That's why I have a child who does that for me. I raised them well, right? So if you came here hoping for some portfolio advice, I'm very sorry to disappoint you. What I can offer, though, is something that I've been facing head on lately, a very real and emotional awareness of what imminent retirement means, mentally, emotionally, and even spiritually. In January 2024, I was walking down the streets of a freezing, rainy Amsterdam with my best friend, talking about my anxiety about turning 60. Typical, Christelle looked at me and said, "Why is it such a big deal to you? It's just 1 year older than 59. Well, that comment stopped me in my tracks, and it forced me to really, really reflect. Why was I so unsettled? And eventually it dawned on me that 60 wasn't just a number. For me, it symbolized something much bigger. For me, it meant the 2-year countdown to retirement. Suddenly, retirement wasn't a distant concept. It was real. Now it's almost 2 years later, and I'm facing 62, which is the official finish line. And I find myself with a jumble of emotions. I definitely feel some anxiety. There is most definitely a level of excitement, a lot of sadness. There's some relief, definitely fears, and I also feel some gratitude. So I always thought it was important for me to understand this emotional roller coaster. Why do I feel like I'm standing at a cliff edge one day and on the brink of a new adventure the next? So I did some research for this talk, and there's especially a Harvard Business School study that gave me a lot of comforting and sometimes confronting answers. But ultimately, I realized that this life stage isn't just about stepping away from official work. It's an existential crossroad. So let me share a story with you that struck quite a chord with me. When Ginny Rometty, the former chairman and CEO of IBM, had 6 months before her retirement, her mentor asked her how she was preparing. Well, she was running a multi-billion-dollar company, and being who she was, she arrived with a very impressive list. She planned on maybe serve on corporate boards, maybe do some government work, write a book, get involved in private equity. A mentor listened to her and then said, "That's all fine, but you're missing the point. What is your purpose going to be?" And that question floored her. And honestly, it floored me too, because the truth of us, most of us have built our identities around what we do, not who we are. Rometty realized that it's important to plan this phase with intention. Even if you're a seasoned executive, she has this advice. Have a purpose-driven plan. Think about how your passions and expertise can help others. Planning ahead allows you to network and plant seeds well ahead of your retirement date, so that you can transition into a new life of purpose and with purpose. Prepare for the emotion. She said that nobody prepared her for how difficult it can be to leave something that you love, even if you know that leaving is the right thing to do. You're going to miss people, routines, places, and that's okay. But we must all be ready for the emotions and let ourselves feel them all. And then be judicious with your time. Somebody told her, after you retire, you likely have about 20 healthy summers left. Or, like Christelle likes to tell me, our runway is getting very short. This perspective helped Rometty to choose activities and commitments wisely. My time is precious, so I'm going to be deliberate about this. The bottom line of Ginny Rometty's story is this. Entering this next chapter requires us to reimagine ourselves, to think about what gives our lives meaning outside of our job title. So, who am I without my title? This is the big one. My identity has always been intertwined with my work, and if I'm honest, to an extent with my job title as well. I don't mean that in a pretentious way, but in a purposeful one. So when work has defined you, who you are for decades, retirement can trigger surprising emotional and cognitive challenges. Research shows that the space between work and retirement can be a profound challenge to your concept of self, especially to people in knowledge-based professions. What do you do when you stop thinking for a living? And an abundance of free time does not necessarily equal happiness. So when I retire next year, who am I if I'm not the co-founder and MD of Elite? Research shows that one of the biggest identity disruptions we experience as adults is retirement. We spend decades being introduced as what we do, not who we are. When that disappears, it can feel like a rug is pulled from under your feet. But fortunately, identity isn't static. It isn't lost. It evolves. So I've started reflecting on questions that ground me. What moments in my personal history have shaped who I am? Which of my values are constants? And what do I want the next chapter of my life to say about me? When I strip away the job title, what is left is the real me. A mother, a grandmother, a friend, somebody who values honesty, transparency, authenticity. Also a recovering perfectionist, but I don't see that going anywhere. And that reflection gives me hope because it tells me I'm not losing my identity. I'm just evolving it. This is the thing that scares me. I'm single, but I'm really lonely. My work fills my days with people, purpose, and connection. But when you think about it, most of those connections are professional, not personal. A Harvard study on happiness has identified the loss of work relationships as the biggest challenge to retirement well-being. The research is very clear. Your professional network doesn't automatically convert into a social one when you retire. So part of my prep work now is to intentionally rebuild or even build from scratch a network of friends outside of work. You know, we like to talk about financial planning for retirement, and obviously it's important. But I think we also need to do relationship planning. When I first started researching the emotional side of retirement, one statistic stood out to me. According to Harvard, nearly 40% of retirees say they felt lonely or socially isolated within the first year of leaving full-time work. Now that scares me, and it also hit home. Because when I think about it, most of my meaningful daily conversations are work-related. They're about clients or projects or strategies and people I care deeply about. But the truth is, they happen because of work. When I switch off my laptop for the last time next year, those interactions, those hundreds of small everyday touch points will suddenly disappear. And that's the loneliness that nobody warns you about. It's not about being alone. It's about losing that invisible web of connection that work provides. That's when I realized I've spent decades nurturing professional relationships, but I've rarely invested in social ones with the same intention. So I'm going to start practicing a new skill, reaching out without a meeting agenda. I'll reconnect with old friends, maybe join a book club. Start saying yes to invites I'd usually decline because I'm too tired or too busy or I have to get up too early tomorrow morning. Harvard calls this building your social portfolio. Just like a financial one, it needs diversification. So you need to diversify with work friends, family connections, old friends you've lost touch with new people who share interests. And friendships, like fitness, need regular exercise. Our industry gives us meaning. We literally help rebuild lives and businesses. That's not merely a job, that's purpose. But when that daily structure disappears, things shift. They say for the first week, sleeping in sounds amazing. Oh, to me, it sounds amazing today. For the first month, gym at 10 a.m. is luxury. Binging Netflix and even a little bit of day drinking may sound attractive at this stage of our year-end fatigue. But slowly, apparently the days start to blend. Harvard's research describes it perfectly. For many retirees, every day starts to feel like a Saturday. If we don't have meaningful projects or learning goals or community roles, boredom creeps in, and with it, a loss of purpose. So that's the next emotional truth, is boredom. We laugh about it. Imagine being bored after working for 40 years, but it's real. Work gives our days shape, rhythm, and purpose. Even bad days have structure. There's a meeting, a deadline, a report, a reason to get up, dress up, and show up. It gives us a sense of value and accomplishment for having a task to complete, however mundane. Harvard's research describes the early months after retirement as the honeymoon phase. You finally have freedom. You can travel. You can sleep in. Go to the gym or for a walk at any time of the day. Go for lunch. It feels luxurious. But after a few months, that novelty wears off. One retiree in their study said, "I used to dream about doing nothing. Then I did nothing, and it wasn't as restful as I thought." Many of us underestimate how much achievement energy drives our sense of self. Even simple things like crossing off a to-do list, solving a problem, or mentoring a team member, they all make us feel useful and alive. When that stops, boredom isn't just about having nothing to do. It's about losing that sense of purpose and progress. So I've been thinking about what I can build into my next chapter to fill that gap. I can experiment. I can a bit of writing, doing some online courses, exploring art, cooking new things, complicated things. And I've realized that joy in this next phase might not come from big achievements, but from small, consistent moments of engagement. I also discovered a lovely term in a Stanford study, purposeful leisure. It's leisure with intention, not mindless time filling, but activities that connect, challenge, or create. Maybe that's the antidote for boredom, not chasing busyness, but building purpose into rest. So I've decided I need to be deliberate about designing my next chapter, to architect my own life structure. The Harvard study that I keep referring to really resonated with me. It's called The Retiring Mind, Why We Struggle and What Helps. That study found that people who flourish in retirement share three common traits. They have a sense of purpose beyond work. They maintain strong social ties, and they stay mentally and physically active. But what truly fascinated me was this. The people who apparently transitioned best didn't just plan their finances, they prototyped their future. They actually tried things out before they retired. One person volunteered once a week for a year before leaving work to see whether it really fulfilled them. I'm thinking of maybe volunteering with a dog sanctuary, but I'm so scared to get so emotionally involved. Those are all the things we need to test. Another started consulting part-time to keep her brain sharp without the corporate intensity. It's about experimenting with mini retirements while you're still working. Small steps that prepare you emotionally, not just financially. And that got me thinking about my own next act. What if this next phase isn't about slowing down, but about shifting pace? What if retirement isn't the full stop, but the comma before the new sentence? I certainly don't want to fade away into leisure. I want to design something that balances meaning and freedom. Harvard experts warn against taking it too easy in retirement. For optimal well-being, it's important to stay engaged. Doing too little can lead to anxiety, depression, and memory impairment. Imagine myself doing some work with purpose, maybe mentoring young leaders, continue writing, maybe a bit of consulting, but also learning how to sit still without feeling guilty. The Harvard study I mentioned found that the majority of people spend more time planning a 2-week holiday than they do planning retirement. That's scary, guys. Those who thrive after retirement share one thing in common. They approached it like a new career, with curiosity, with intention, and with a willingness to involve. For me, that means asking myself the following questions. What skills can I still use meaningfully? What gives me energy instead of depleting it? And how do I want to give back, mentor, or create impact? I don't have all the answers yet, but I know this. I want to retire to something, not from something. I'm still writing that script, but at least for now, I'm the one holding the pen. As I prepare for this next chapter, I've realized something profound. Retirement isn't about stopping, it's about shifting. We spend our careers asking, what do I want to achieve? Maybe in retirement, I'm asking, who do I want to become? It's a transition from striving to being, from achievement to alignment. It's a reminder that meaning doesn't retire when we do. It simply migrates and must be rediscovered. Oh, yes, I certainly feel anxious sometimes, but I also feel grateful that I get to enter this next season with awareness, curiosity, knowledge, health, and choice. So retirement isn't the end of relevance for me. It's the start of reinvention. And that to me feels like the most meaningful work yet. Thank you very much for indulging me.
Okay, now next up we have another wonderful, strong woman from Elite Risk Acceptances, Thandiwe Semela. She's the Chief Operating Officer at Elite. And she has more than 2 decades or almost 2 decades of experience in the insurance industry. She's built a reputation for strategic clarity, operational excellence, and leadership style that is balanced with people first thinking. That's a wonderful way to describe Thandiwe. So off the clock, she's a goalkeeper on the Action netball court, defending the same grit. With the same grit she brings to the boardroom. She likes to spend time with her family, cooking, couch surfing for creative recharge, and being lovingly ignored by her 2 cats, who are quite certain they run the household. Thandiwe brings a refreshing blend of industry insight, leadership energy, and relatable charm to the InsureTalk stage. And I just want to say again, Elite, the team at Elite, Old Mutual Insure, here at InsureTalk, we can't say thank you enough for being our headline event partner today. And the topic that Tandiwe is going to talk to us about is governance and controls in the non-life sector. Thanks for joining us, Tandiwe.
Thank you for that introduction, Christelle. And it's very hard to actually follow from such a lovely presentation by Tarina. That honesty and perspective is really appreciated. Talking about or taking a bit of notes in how Tarina ended off in going beyond our comfort levels. My topic is actually about that, because in us being comfortable and going beyond our comfort levels, I believe governance and controls is something that will actually bring growth for everyone. So as Christelle introduced, my topic is on governance and controls as strategic enablers, specifically in making sure that enhanced risk management will actually mean effective and efficient operations, which is my world. This is what I'm deep in, and this is where governance is prominent. So as I begin, we know we live in a highly regulatory environment. In operations where I work, I am often having to wear many hats and involve myself in many things. And one of those is governance and controls. So traditionally, you would see this as regulation, which is often handled by the compliance departments, risk mitigation, which is the risk managers, and the audit and oversight and monitoring functions. All of these are there, and often you see these as, a tough mountain to climb, a very, I would dare say, almost irritating part of the world that we live in. And I'm asking everyone with the chat today to stretch themselves, go beyond the everyday and the comfort level, and actually know that embedded governance actually enhances your strategy. It gives a more heightened accountability to everyone and actually improve customer experience. At the end of the day, we want happy customers, and we also want accountability from everyone. And governance and controls is actually a tool. So I've decided to say, okay, let's try and reframe this. Why I say that is, again, a strategic alignment. So having governance and controls, irregardless of which level, whether it's at the floor, the actual underwriters or brokers, the advisors, the intermediaries, how they control or how they report, and what they choose to control and what they choose to report, always funnels into the strategic objectives. So if you have your strategic objections there, you know what you're chasing, whether it is, managing loss ratios, making sure you are paying the proper claims, your disputes to your clients, your everyday servicing, your turnaround times, the joys, the love of operations. If you don't have controls in that space, then you won't be fully aligned with strategy. So you have to always, in the back of your mind, keep that, these controls are actually helping me, they're helping us achieve the strategic alignment. Enhancing accountability and transparency. What controls when governance does is actually, it's the playbook. It gives you the blueprint. You know the rules or the context that you're working in. and then you know what is clear, what you are chasing. So that means if you have embedded that even in how you build your reports, there is clear accountability for everyone, but there's also a clearer operational perspective. I am chasing X. If I'm chasing X, my blind spots are 1, 2, and 3. I have made sure all my reports are speaking to the intent, which is the strategy. And everything that I do every day, irregardless if it's operations, it's client services, it's sales, it's claims, is speaking to that, is controlled, is reported, is transparent, and is also addressing the key matrices. So that becomes very important. Of course, within all of that, there is always risk management and process streamlining. And for me, without jumbling up the words, this is to make sure that there is good collaboration, there is clear collaboration with compliance teams. All of us must know the different short-term insurance acts, the different acts, because I'm speaking from a short-term insurance environment. FSCA regulations, you're keeping on top of that. Again, with risk, these are the operational controls every day. You are keeping on top of that. You're keeping close to audit teams. So as much as we do our day-to-day business, which is insurance, the people in those environments have to be fully collaborative to help you build the governance and the controls for the business, instead of it being, a separate team, a separate silo. Because if you do that, then that means your control and governance is no longer a tick box. But if you're collaborating with those teams and you understand what is their intent, what is your intent, it helps the conversation. So that, we're not defensive. We don't see it as, it's a difficult mountain. But if you start collaborating with those teams or external service providers that might help you in smaller organizations, then you start to say, okay, this is actually part of the business. It's not going to change, but let me see how I embed it. How do I own it? And then how do I take it forward? And again, finally, in my view, governance is a growth enabler, because again, if we have spoken above and we've said you are answering the strategic objective and there is clear accountability, reporting, and transparency, it translates to actual growth because you are addressing all stakeholders. Business performance, you are also addressing customer service, you are addressing day-to-day operations, and they are reported well, and you are keeping into account what regulation, FSCA, industry best practice and benchmarking, and you are constantly assessing yourself on that. The operational impact of that is that, with embedded controls, for me, in my experience, this would be, will directly impact what your service level agreements are. It will impact what your standard operating procedures are. It will impact on your turnaround times. As I've just mentioned before, with proper reporting and transparency, and that accountability, your actual controls now become a living system. It's not a tick box again. It's now a living thing. The SOP, of course, is the how. And the SLA is external. It's the what. Which service, which premium, which claim, which dispute, and the SOP is saying how. So making sure controls are fully embedded in that means it has a direct day-to-day impact in what you do internally and externally. And therefore, if you are aware and start becoming comfortable with that, that means you start improving and seeing blind spots and seeing areas where maybe you need to put in additional work or additional sites on those SLAs. What do the turnaround times say? How is your customer experience? How are you measuring it? How do you improve? If you're not looking at it, then you are unable to change it. You are unable to influence it. And this is why we must always try to embrace it instead of viewing it just as a tick box item. Again, the points that I'm speaking, they are interlinked, so bear with me there, but I'm speaking holistically from an operations perspective. That means now your matrix, because now you have clearer SLAs and SOPs, you're able to have clearer accountability and matrix. That also boils down to people. So it's not just operations, it's not just reports. That means now if you have embedded controls and governance, you should also start seeing an improvement in how you do scorecards at the end of the year. Because you see what everyone does every day, which controls are embedded there, it speaks at that level, then it goes to reporting, then it goes technical, then it goes to strategy. So it has a filter down, it impacts everyone. And but what that means is if there is clear goals, clear operational expectations or how we work, and also the matrices, your day-to-day that you are chasing in and out will be clearer if there is an embedded approach to governance and control. Then it also speaks to real-time monitoring and improvement. You see, the scorecard at the beginning of the year is clear. It's following what is in the SOP, what is in the SLA. We have set the controls and how you've built your reporting, that transparency and accountability. What it means is now managers, team leaders, at different levels of leadership and management means that they have real-time monitoring and improvement. In insurance, all of us, we're also going to get our CPD points, continuous professional development. Oops. It's the same.
Sorry, Sandy, I'm going to stop your video. The audio just started to lag a bit.
Okay.
You may continue.
I may continue. Can you see the video?
Yeah, we can see the presentation.
I apologize. Okay.
No,
apologize. Okay, as I'm saying, real-time monitoring and improvement. In the same way, we all attend training webinars in terms of continuous professional development. Real-time monitoring and improvement means in real time, you're able to be proactive in anticipating blind spots, problem areas, further improving the business, the operations, the efficiency daily in real time. Because how you've built your reports is based on key things, either operationally strategic, service, including regulation, making sure all stakeholders are addressed and problem areas are managed. There are risks we have to live with, but are you proactively trying to manage it? That's always the core, because at the end, last but not least, is making sure all these things that we are doing, we are trying to make sure that we are enhancing customer satisfaction. Proper operations, proper controls, making sure we are following what regulation requires from us. We are following best principles in terms of financial requirements, reserves, all the lovely things that I may not be an expert of because I'm in operations, but all those things put together, that supply chain means we are enhancing customer satisfaction at the core of it. So we cannot take, again, governance as a tick box. So in preparing for this talk and webinar, I went and tried to find a practical example, and I came across an example from African Bank in 2014, which I found very interesting because at least I was able to see before and after, and maybe actually show what could be the impact if really you're not looking into controls and governance and fully embedding it instead of treating it as a third thing outside, like there's a Chinese wall, it's just a tick box item instead of a fully embedded ethos. So in 2014, African Bank was in the news. This is actually well documented. You can find it online. There's been papers written, interesting papers, even at the Wits Business School. What came out of this was that there was a governance breakdown. So African Bank's board itself did not have sufficient monitoring and oversight. The issue had been, there'd been a problem in how they applied their credits and they also how they reserved their bad debts or how they reported on them. So the bank board was not like having proper oversight to management, and executive management itself was not reporting in the appropriate way, specifically to their credit operations and also in how they actually make provisions for bad debts and their credit risk. Then this shows again, there was also a more relaxed or a more overzealousness from the CEO, who didn't allow that objectivity in terms of how things are reported based on that credit risk and based on provisions of bad debts. So again, it's now the board, executive management, it's speaking to reporting, it's also speaking to key risk indicators. As a bank, you would think credit risk is something that's there because banks are about lending, right? And how do you provide for bad debts when people are not paying for the loans that they pay for? It's a key thing. So if you are not tracking it on the day, this is what could end up as a result. So for me, when I looked at this, I was like, well, as much as this is banking, we are in insurance. We also have key things, that loss ratio, the NES in terms of customer satisfaction, dispute resolution, our disclosures to internal application, to OSTI, again, it's the day-to-day, there's reporting. So we must make sure that there's no breakdown. Again, from African Bank, in this example, there was compliance in terms or miscompliance with that National Credit Act, the Basel Core principles in terms of reserving, etc., etc. It's key things. It's regulatory, but actually it was operational. And as a result of those things not going according to plan, now we have an issue, and now we can't meet strategic objectives. Now we have a negative impact on African Bank, because what happened is towards the end of 2014, African Bank was put under curatorship by the Reserve Bank because of this failure. And at the core of it is basically the King principles, which are, like for me, the ethical culture, good performance, effective control, and legitimacy. Now, if we're looking at that, of course, that's something we all want. That's something we all strive to do. And the point I'm trying to make is, if you take controls and governance and it's fully embedded, driven by those King principles, ethical culture, good performance, effective control, legitimacy, day-to-day embedded, it would mean you are overcoming potential failures like this. So the positive of African Bank was that after it was under curatorship, after the South African Reserve Bank intervened, I had a close look as I was preparing for this webinar. And quickly, I could see that the capital adequacy was at 21% for the first half of 2025. The customer base has grown by 36%. Of course, they have their own challenges, but I wasn't trying to analyze the operations, but I'm speaking from a governance. But what that shows is key things. If your customer base is growing with good governance, you can start to see positive results, because to me, I read that as positive results if your customer base is growing and if your capital adequacy is even above a regulatory requirement or internal limits. That's a good thing. That means in retrospect, everyone learned from what happened in 2014, and there were stronger controls in terms of governance reform, enhanced risk management, in addition to the curatorship. So governance as a driver of strategic execution from where we are is that it integrates. So everything that we do from different levels, it's funneled, reported, transparent, objective, it's there. It can, withstand being assessed, as much as we may not like it when auditors come. But if you do this, then you can prove how you are intentionally, with focus, with direction, but mostly with intent, you are trying to achieve the strategy. What it does is it structures decision making. What governance and control does is that it gives a benchmark, but it also provides clarity and consistency. So a decision I'm making, if we are all following the same controls, we are all following this whole governance, a decision I'm making should not be so vastly different from what another manager is making if we are all operating in the same environment. Not only does that speak to consistency, but it also speaks to fairness. And I feel that is something positive for decision making. I touched on continuous monitoring and improvement. Proper reports in real time means you react in real time, you are more proactive, and you're constantly looking for improvement because you are benchmarking yourself in what governance and risk management controls could be. And that is something that will always be a positive in terms of strategic execution. So in my conclusion, as I'm going towards the end, is that, government and controls are actually an asset. It's a living system and a tool. Only if we, engage either with our colleagues, if there is in-house teams that do that, or with your service provider, which could be compliance officers and specialists that do that, where fully understanding the intent of what they are trying to address, and also the intent of operations and the business, and using that as an asset to make sure we all achieve the same things, we are covering bases, we are being proactive. So that means better operations. It also is actually an improvement in a leadership style and ethical practices. All these things, again, are touching base to what we spoke about when I mentioned the King principles: ethical culture, good performance, effective control, legitimacy. Legitimacy, sustainability, this is me now saying, but if these things are done well, that is good for the business, that's good for the operations, because you are making sure also for tomorrow. And that is it on my side, and I will hand over to you, Tarina. Thank you very much, everyone, for your audience.
Well, now we've reached that time of the conference where we get some feedback from our regular inserts. But I thought it's a good opportunity to tell you a little bit about InsureTalk Live, and just to remind you that the tickets are up for sale. The producers will drop the link or the email address or how you book into the chat right now. Please come and support us. It's so fantastic. It's a smaller event. We have a fantastic speaker lineup, and you must stay until the end because I'm going to tell you about who we can expect to be on the stage, the real stage, in Johannesburg in November. So please support us with this. And then there's something else I do want to mention to you. This has got to do with our CPD points. Every single month, we have a few, at least 10 to more questions. When am I getting my CPD certificates? When am I getting my CPD certificates? You will get your CPD certificates it takes up to 2 weeks after the conference has concluded, so within the next 2 weeks. And if you go onto the InsureTalk website and go and set up a profile with the email address that you use to log into the conference, you will automatically just get your CPD certificates. It won't go away. At the same time, if you're an IISA member, paid up member, you have access to the IISA member platform, and you will just find that the CPD certificates for InsureTalk are automatically uploaded to the IISA portal. So there are many reasons why you should be a member of the Insurance Institute of South Africa. It is first of all a badge of honor to be a professional in this industry, supported by our institute, and it makes life easy. They've got amazing training courses that's free of charge. It's a community of professionals. So make sure you go and find out how all of that works. And on that note, Thokozile is going to join us to give us an update from the Insurance Institute of South Africa. Welcome, Madam CEO.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Today you have me, Isabella, is taking a break. Let me kick off today's update by sharing that our skills development programs have scaled. In the next couple of weeks, we'll be delivering a loss adjuster development program as well as a broker development program, which we have termed the next gen of specialists. The broker development program is split into 3 groups. There's a group that's focused on unemployed youth. The second group is focused on unemployed professionals that have worked in the industry but are currently unemployed. And the last group is focused on SMME loss adjusters. And the aim is to provide the SMMEs with mentorship, coaching, exposure to working on complex claims, complex loss adjusting. And with that, we hope that will give them the opportunity to scale their businesses and enhance their knowledge, of course. The next gen of specialists is particularly focused on developing broking skills, knowledge, understanding of insurance, but from a broking angle, and how to engage with customers. And these are programs were made possible by the sponsorship from SASRA. So a big thank you to SASRA SOC Limited for investing in the development of critical skills that are required to take the industry forward. We recently hosted a Sip and Paint event in partnership with ISB Optimus, one of our corporate partners. Thank you to members and partners that joined us at the event. It was a huge success. It was an afternoon of relaxation where members had the opportunity to connect with each other. Corporate partners were able to engage with each other as well. Once more, a big thank you to ISB Optimus for making that event possible. The second ISA Golf Day is coming up on the 30th of October, and a big thank you to all the sponsors of prizes and sponsors of the event. Thank you to Bright, Santam Brokers, Marsh, SA Glass, Gaj, Kahaya, Collision Management, as well as Apex U. We appreciate every involvement and the partnership in making sure that we create the platforms for members to connect and corporate partners to connect, which has been a much needed request from our members and corporate partners. We will be having a member recognition event on the 18th of November that event. That's where we recognize new members, members that have upgraded their membership levels, long-serving members, and members that are at the highest levels of CPD compliance. So do look out for the link to that event. It's a virtual event. Do keep a lookout for that event, and it's open to members and non-members. So join us for that event. We'll be grateful if you can. I shared at the beginning of the year that we had attained a level 1 BBB rating based on our 2024 financials. And I also shared that as business is growing, we will now be rated on the generic codes and not on the sector codes. Generic codes are much more stringent. They require quite a lot from organizations. But I'm pleased to share that we have been intentional and strategic about the attainment of that level and making sure that transformation is not about compliance. For us, transformation is part of business. It's embedded in our day-to-day business. We monitor ourselves on a monthly basis, and our monitoring is at the end of September indicate that we will retain the level 1 BE rating, and this time under the generic codes. That's quite a big milestone that we are pleased to have achieved, although we are yet to be verified next year. We have ongoing webinars, as you are aware. In a week, probably about 3 or 4 webinars are hosted where we just share knowledge on latest trends on technical insurance matters. We have one big webinar coming up. Keep a lookout, and that webinar is in partnership with AA Insurance in New Zealand and Sasria, and it's going to focus on resilience in insurance, lessons learned from the Christchurch earthquake. So keep a lookout of the invites and register for that event. In closing, I would like to announce the AIE 2026 theme, the Insurance Renaissance, Rebirth, Reinvent, and Redefine. And that is what is the theme for 2026. In 2025, we gathered under the baobab to honor our roots. Now we gather in the spirit of renaissance to dream and create boldly. We are moving forward grounded in wisdom and visionary futures. The Renaissance period symbolizes the flourishing of ideas, culture, and transformation, and like insurance, like the insurance sector, stands at the threshold of a new age, one defined by innovation, creativity, reimagined purpose, and reimagined positioning of how business is done. Isn't that just spot on where we are as an industry? Until next time, in the meantime, enjoy the short clip that showcases the AIE 2026 theme, the Insurance Renaissance, Rebirth, Reinvent, and Redefine. Thank you.
Welcome to the African Insurance Exchange 2026. Rebirth, Reinvent, Redefine. A sophisticated blend of Afrofuturism, innovation, and transformation. The African insurance industry is entering a renaissance where technology and humanity converge and where Africa leads the reinvention of global risk and resilience. This is a fusion between human values and technological evolution, where trust meets progressive thinking and digital disruption. The butterfly, a universal symbol of metamorphosis, mirrors the industry's own reinvention journey. Insurance remains a protector of life, hope, and transformation. Built on trust, renewal, and delicacy, we are evolving from legacy to innovation, balancing tradition and transformation, where energy, speed, and creativity hint at new horizons and disruptive thinking, where cultural grounding ensures we remain authentically African while looking forward to a global future. Join us at AIE 2026, where the African insurance industry is reborn, reinvented, and redefined.
So The next regular insert is from the mother of all the insurance apprentices, Rianette Whitehead. Rianette comes on InsureTalk every month, and she gives us a general news update. She's the co-owner and editor of FA News. She's the brainchild behind the hugely successful Insurance Apprentice Initiative. She is a trailblazer, and she's got her finger on all the different touch points in terms of media in our industry. So for the next 10 minutes, we're going to hear a little bit about what is happening in the South African insurance industry and abroad. So Rianette, we thank you for joining us this morning.
Hi everyone, and welcome back to another edition of InsureTalk. Thank you for the opportunity to share some insights, trends, and what the industry conversations are currently with you. There's plenty happening, from automation and climate risk to reinsurance and regulation. So let's dive straight into what is relevant right now. If you've been following the latest press releases on FA News, you'll know that there's a lot of unfolding across live, non-live, and intermediary spaces. Our October edition specifically has a strong non-live focus, and it's now live, backed with insights that matter to every advisor, broker, and insurer. So I thought it's an ideal and opportune time to share some of the insights specifically of the October edition with you, seeing that we had such a strong focus on non-life. Automation is transforming claims, but it also brings risk. One of our features explore how automated decision-making interacts with POPIA and what happens when personal information meets machine logic. The takeaway: automation can enhance speed and accuracy, but human oversight remain essential for fairness and accountability. And I'm not sure that that will change anytime soon. A technical but crucial read looks at proximate cause. When multiple factors contribute to a loss, which one truly caused it? The piece breaks down real examples, offering clarity brokers and claims teams can apply in their everyday disputes. Climate risk, as always, dominates this edition. Are we ready for a climate catastrophe? From infrastructure resilience to catastrophe models, the answer isn't simple. We also look at the risk of wildfires and the revised standards for thatch and fire safety. The message: as extreme weather intensifies, underwriting and risk management must evolve fast and adapt to the changing environment. Collaboration across the industry is growing, which is great, but so is exposure. So our feature on joint ventures and professional indemnity highlights why every partnership needs the right protection. Poorly structured cover or unclear responsibility can quickly turn collaboration into liability. In Brokers Show Their Mettle, we celebrate how intermediaries are stepping up as insurers tighten exclusions for fire, flood, and subsidence. It's another reminder that the broker's role as client advocate is more vital than ever. From a tech point, bridging the cybersecurity gap explores how people remain both the weakest link and the best defense in managing cyber risk. Boosting efficiency without losing the human touch highlights how insurers can integrate AI without losing empathy and trust, and don't overestimate AI for underwriting climate risk brings balance, showing that while AI helps, it can't yet predict the complexity of a changing climate. Several pieces takes us from theory to practice. So Saltoro mask incident is a wake-up call for exporters and marine insurers specifically. Infrastructure failures, we unpack who's liable when systems collapse. Small-scale farmers, showing how tailored insurance drives inclusion. Repair, replace, repeat, tackling delays and cost pressures in the motor insurance space. And then shifting SMME risk is a must-read on how evolving small business models need fresh cover solutions. Together, they show an industry that's adapting and innovating despite every challenge. I attend a lot of events, a lot of functions, a lot of online sessions. I would like to highlight quite a good one that I attended recently, and that was the new National Connect Partner Day. Really a mix of very, very relevant content. The FSCA had a session on their digital transformation journey, what they're going through, what have they gone through, and why they really need the feedback from industry on a lot of things. The National Financial Ombudsman shared some fascinating and sometimes worrying complaint trends. Their insights remind us how better communication and transparency can prevent disputes before they happen. The next standout session from Patrick Bracher was the Kofi Bill. It offered a clear look at what's changed and what lies ahead as Kofi reshapes licensing, supervision, and conduct standards. Patrick gave us a bit more insight into the history, previous regulatory changes, where we are now, and predictably how things doesn't look too bright in terms of the timelines we are getting versus what still needs to happen. So definitely a lot of work lying ahead in that space. The electric vehicle session was incredibly interesting. The discussion covered infrastructure, affordability, new risk factors from battery fires to repair complexity, the fact that the cars are so quiet and we have a lot of pedestrians on our road, how some people even added artificial noise to their cars to make them a little bit more noisy so that people can hear their cars. So the reality is, as the electric vehicle adoption grows, underwriting models will most certainly need to adjust and adapt. Overall, the event captured how regulators, ombuds, insurers, and advisors are working together towards sustainable progress. Then my favorite, well, one of my favorite topics is the insurance apprentice. A quick reminder that applications are closing on 31 October. It gives you about a week and a day, a week, yeah, more or less. We're obviously looking for the next wave of passionate, driven industry professionals ready to showcase their knowledge and creativity. And this year, we're calling especially on our regions. Last year, only one contestant came from outside of Gauteng, and that was our winner from Bloemfontein. He won. So come on, Cape Town, Durban, Mpumalanga, Limpopo. It's your time to shine. If you ever wanted to challenge yourself, meet incredible people, and gain unmatched industry exposure, this is your moment. Visit the insuranceapprentice.co.za and get your entry in before next week, please. For our partners and sponsors, there are still sponsorship opportunities. I've recently only started sharing all those opportunities. With TIA now reaching national television, it's a powerful platform to align your brand with something that celebrates and grows the industry. We have also been approved for consumer education budget for those who are doing the episodes. So if you want to have a conversation, please reach out to me. So, from regulation to reinsurance to climate resilience and technology, one thing keeps coming through: adaptability. Our industry continues to innovate, protect, and uplift. And that's what keeps it so dynamic. You can read all these stories and more on fanews.co.za, your go-to source for insurance and financial services updates. Until next time, stay curious, stay inspired, and keep driving the industry forward. Thank you once again for the opportunity. Thank you for listening to me, and enjoy the rest of your session.
This time of the day, we have our little break where we listen to the amazing talent that this country has to offer. Young people singing, playing musical instruments, entertaining us. So it's time to go and get that glass of water, that cup of coffee or tea, and join us for this the insert today. The entertainer that we have is Alma. The music is Peak into her mind and closely reflects her upbringing. She's London born, but Cape Town raised. That's the other way around from what we used to. She experienced growing up between two drastically different cultures, drawing her earliest inspirations from her parents' own CD collections and eclectic taste. Her inspirations range from jazzy sounds like Amy Winehouse and Aretha Franklin to the indie pop sounds of Steve Lacy and Alice Phoebe Lou. So we are very, I would say just blessed to have entertainment like this. And the reason why we can do it is because we have a fantastic sponsorship in place where we are supported by Business and Arts South Africa, BASA. They were established in 1997 already as a joint initiative between government and the private sector. And BASA is dedicated to fostering mutually beneficial partnerships between business, community, and the arts. They have amazing programs, grants, and they do a lot of research. BASA champions business investment in the creative sector. And what is more relevant to what we have today, an insurance conference, and we are entertained by some of the best artists that we have in this country. So, Alma, we look forward to your performance this day.
Hi there, my name is Amagesi. I'm an actress and musician based in Cape Town. I make jazzy, neo-soul, R&B kind of music, sometimes Afro beats, whatever I feel at the time. I'm going to be performing a couple songs for you guys, and my first song will be called Cocoon. Welcome to InsureTalk. Came out the void, brand new, tangled in my cocoon. I've begun to see things differently to you. My heart was cut right through, fractures and bone tissue. Time has found a way to bring me back to you. Can you really feel like I do? When I try to explain, it all falls through. Is this really real? Can you feel it too? Angels in the moon sing when I can't see. Love pours right out my skin. I overgave again. Don't think I can help it. Love is never a sin. The sun glows inside my ribs, color of crimson red. I can't feel it gently when I know what winter is. Can you really feel like I do? When I try to explain, it all falls through. Is this really real? Can you feel it too? Angels in the moon sing when I can't see. Look up at the trees, how they weep for me. Almost brought me to my knees, but I stay afloat. Can you really feel like I do? When I try to explain, it all falls through. Is this really real? Can you feel it too? Look up at the trees, how they weep for me. Almost brought me to my knees, but I stay afloat. Can you really feel like I do? When I try to explain, it all falls through. Is this really real? Can you feel it too? Angels in the moon sing when I can't see. Look up at the trees, how they weep for me. Almost brought me to my knees, but I stay afloat. The song is Distance. I'm looking at you through the tears in my eyes. There is no more pretending. I recognize you don't put value on my time. Don't see the love I'm sending. Not going out your way to see me. And all these other guys, they text me, never reach me. I feel so stupid if I showed you love, believe me. Going in circles, it's on repeat. Going in circles, it's on repeat. Closing off your heart, but that don't stop you bleeding. How do I feel your warmth if I'm kept at a distance? If I'm kept at a distance. So I guess this is goodbye, baby. Tell you it's alright, there is no need to fight, baby. No, I don't hate you, not even in the slightest. Understanding and compassion is what I give. So I guess this is goodbye, baby. Tell you it's alright, there is no need to fight, baby. No, I don't hate you, not even in the slightest. Understanding and compassion is what I give. No, I'm impatient, but I'm working on it. Just give me grace. Don't think I can take it. It's heartbreaking, I've done this before. They say it's right person, wrong time. Don't believe that, just be mine. And I won't be around your whole life, so make it count. I'm looking at you through the tears in my eyes. There is no more pretending. I recognize you don't put value on my time. Don't see the love I'm sending. Not going out your way to see me. And all these other guys, they text me, never reach me. I feel so stupid if I showed you love, believe me. Going in circles, it's on repeat. Going in circles, it's on repeat. Closing off your heart, but that don't stop you bleeding. How do I feel your warmth if I'm kept at a distance? If I'm kept at a distance. So I guess this is goodbye, baby. Tell you it's alright, there's no need to fight, baby. No, I don't hate you, not even in the slightest. Understanding and compassion is what I give. So I guess this is goodbye, baby. Tell you it's alright, there is no need to fight, baby. No, I don't hate you, not even in the slightest. Understanding and compassion is what I give. Circles, 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 circles. Thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed, then you can find my music on Spotify or Apple Music or YouTube, any streaming platform at Umagacy. And my Instagram handle is at Umagacy1.
Now today we have Santam on board as our event partner, another corporate leading by example of supporting initiatives like InsureTalk to make sure that we get to spread our knowledge across this virtual roundtable. And we have two wonderful speakers up from Santam today who's going to talk to us about digital wounds, unraveling the psychological impact of cyber attacks. Very, very relevant at the moment. Santam has brought forward two speakers, Colin Wiseman and Lucas van der Merwe. I'll tell you a bit about them just now, but Colin is a manager in claims, Santam Financial Lines, Santam Cyber and Technology Risks. And Lucas is a specialist in cybersecurity, Cybercom Africa, and the Digital Forensic Lab. So we have the right people talking to us on this topic. And I must be very honest with you, even though I've been in insurance for the last 34 years, believe it or not. I have been in the industry as long as a person's age. So I still don't get the cyber risk as I would like to understand it deeply and really understand what the solutions are. So just on Colin, as I mentioned, he's the manager in claims focusing on financial lines at Santam, cyber and technology risks. He's been working in the industry for over 10 years, is a qualified attorney of the High Court of South Africa with a forensic investigation background. And then Lucas is a seasoned ICT managed services expert with an international track record and extensive experience in holistic security approaches and zero trust principles. That's interesting. He's held prominent roles as the group CISO and executive cybersecurity, and is presently the associate director of cybersecurity sales and client development at Cybercom. So Lucas is known for his insightful presentations and thought leadership in the field of cybersecurity. So over to these two speakers, Digital Wounds, Unraveling the Psychological Impact of Cyber Attacks. Thanks and welcome to our show this morning, Colin and Lucas.
Hello, everybody. Thank you very much for joining us. I'm sure this is an exciting topic, or maybe a new topic for most people. I'm going to just start with a current presentation of the trends that we're seeing before I invite Lucas to join us. I hope you can see my slideshow. There. Okay, so as you can see, cyber is a very active area that we're dealing with. There's a lot of activity happening. This is what we call a live threat map. So you can get a feel for the amount of cyber activity that is happening and attacks that are taking place at the moment around the world. So this is just an overview. These are the different kinds of attacks, where they're coming from, where they're originating, and the targeted countries that are being affected. So this is a live situation. It is happening. It is ever increasing. We are seeing a lot of increased activity in the cyberspace at the moment, specifically with the ransomware attacks, cyber breaches that are getting into large corporate systems, stopping entities from being able to function and bringing companies, large companies, to a complete standstill as a result of these activities. So you'll see in the news recently, South Africa continues to be targeted by cyber criminals, and it's ranked 27th globally as the most breached country in the second quarter of 2025. So we're estimating a data breach every minute, and the second quarter of the year hits a new high for these numbers. So Surfshark are reporting on all the cyber breaches that are happening in South Africa, and according to their statistics, over 21,000 South African accounts were breached between April and June, which translates to approximately 3 per every 100,000 people. So this is a current risk. Everyone is being affected, from individuals to large corporate entities. And organizations in South Africa are facing a growing data breach epidemic. In just the first quarter, you can see how the numbers have been increasing. And our country's information regulator is now receiving more than 150 breach notifications every month. So this is a drastic rise from just 56 per month a year earlier. And behind these incidents lie a troubling pattern of 95% breaches are caused by human error. And that's why it's so important for large corporate entities to engage in training and education of their employees, because this is one of the main areas which are being used to infiltrate companies and install ransomware and to try and steal that data using phishing attacks. And that's employees clicking on links that they shouldn't be and allowing access to the threat actors into their systems. So the financial damage is very big. In 2024 already, the average cost for a single breach was hitting about 53 million rand, and most severe incidents costing up to and above 360 million rand. Nationally, the Council of Scientific and Industrial Research estimates that the annual cost of data breaches at about 2.2 billion rand. And despite these escalating risks, many organizations remain unprepared, with only 29% plan to increase their cybersecurity budget significantly for 2025. So there's definitely a shortfall in the area. But something that we wanted to discuss with you today, and I'll stop sharing my slides shortly, is what happens when you are faced with a cyber breach. And that's where the expert Lucas, who is joining us, and he comes from a company, Cybercom, This is a sister company to CN&CO Forensics Labs, and he is integral in when faced with a cyber breach. He is one of the people that you call with the emergency hotline to assist you at the moment that a cyber breach has taken place. And he can explain to us the first steps that take place once you have been subject to a cyber breach. And then we'll start looking at this conversation as what is happening behind the scenes. How are the corporate bosses that are running the companies that have been impacted by such a cyber breach, what's happening on their side? What is the emotional impact of the cyber breach? And what steps can be taken to minimize and try to lessen the amount of loss and damage that has been suffered as a result of a cyber breach. Hi, Lucas. Thanks for joining us. So, Lucas, I just wanted to find out from your side, when you get that call, that phone call to come and assist an insured that has suffered from a cyber breach, what are the immediate steps that you are taking once you've been contacted to try and assess the extent of the loss and the position, the immediate steps that need to be taken to try and minimize the situation immediately?
Yeah, I was thinking.
Oh, I think we've got a problem with your internet connection. I don't know if that's just on my side. Lucas, can you hear me? I think we're having some technical difficulties on your side, Lucas. I'm not sure if it's the connection where you're based.
Let's just give Lucas maybe one moment. I see it dropped off quickly. I think it's his internet connection, and then once he's joined back, you can maybe just hand over to him again.
Yes, yeah, let's wait for him. I still have plenty to talk on this subject. So what I'll do is I'll start sharing some other information from my slideshow as well. Just hold on for me while I activate that again. Okay. Apologies for that, everybody. Sometimes Lucas is not in his normal area today, so it might be just an internet connection that he's battling with at the moment. So if we're looking at the statistics still that on the cyber side of things, we can see Munich Re, who is someone very involved in the cyber space, and they're one of the main global insurers in the market. They say that that the global trend is about to reach 16.3 billion rand in 2025, $1 billion in 2025. So the market has proven itself to be capable and efficient in sheltering those insured critical digital assets needing to run daily operations of organizations of all types, from micro, small, and medium-sized business. As I was saying earlier, large amounts of companies are getting impacted by these cyber breaches, and it's not dependent on the size of the companies anymore. It spreads across the whole board. So the global insurance industry can withstand multiple extreme cyber exposure scenarios, such as these that arise from widespread malware attacks or large-scale outages of cloud service providers. So rapid simultaneous risk changes due to technological, geopolitical, and market-specific factors present insurers with both challenges and opportunities. So we'll see that cyber insurance has become one of the most effective components to trying to prevent the loss and damage that are suffered by corporate entities. when they are faced with a cyber breach. So there's often a lot of questions on the underwriting side and getting policies, cyber policies in place. What are the best steps that a corporate entity can take in order to prevent the damage and to try and get back up and running as quickly as possible? And the answer to that question is clearly taking out cyber insurance. And the reason for that is the assessment and the underwriting process sets out very clearly for insureds and for brokers what are the minimum safety requirements that need to be met in order to get your systems up to scratch to try and prevent damage should you face a cyber breach, or to try and prevent ever being affected by a cyber breach. And taking out insurance is one of those key important factors to consider, because we set out exactly what the minimum requirements are, and you can work with your IT teams and specialists to make sure that you're getting your standards up to the minimum safety requirements to try and prevent damage going forward. Lucas, are you there yet? Can we continue?
I'm back, Colin. I'm not sure.
Okay.
I'm off the video. I think we'll leave it at that for now.
Yeah, perhaps we'll leave it off the video for now. I'll stop sharing my screen. Just give me 1 second. All right. Apologies, everyone, for the technical difficulties. So back to my introduction, Lucas works as the first response providers that you'll see on your policies when you take out cyber cover. And they are the first people that you would contact the moment that you've suffered a breach. So Lucas, if you can just walk us through the immediate steps and information that you're looking at once you get that dreaded phone call at 12 o'clock at night that one of our insureds has been impacted by a cyber breach.
Absolutely. Can you hear me okay now?
Yes, yeah, much better. Thank you.
Perfect. So yeah, the very first thing is we need to understand the extent of the breach. We need to understand what happened. We need to know how long the company has been aware. We need to work out where in the greater scheme of things this part of their network fits in. So there's a lot of that triaging to assess the extent of the breach, the impact of the breach, and helps us understand how it took place. Because the first couple of hours is, or the first few hours, is all about trying to slightly moved. So I think that starting off is just that initial assessment of what's happened and how far it's gone, how much time has passed. Discovery and organization affected, because that dictates how to approach the containment and the eradication going forward.
Yeah, Lucas, you're on and off, unfortunately. I think even with the camera off, the sound is not coming through. All right. I think Lucas, what we're going to do is I'll continue with my presentation and see if we can get you back in again with a clearer connection. What I'm going to do is I'm going to share my screen and I'm going to continue my discussion, and we'll take it. So apologies for that, ladies and gentlemen. Unfortunately, these things do happen, especially when someone is out of town and relying on network connections on their phone. So I'll continue the presentation because I think it's important information for everyone that is on this call in any event, just to get a general idea of cyber liability insurance.
Sorry,
And
Colin. Can you just swap your display settings so we can just
I'm
see
sharing
through?
the wrong screen.
Yeah, just go to display settings and just swap your view.
Okay, it's one of those days. There you go.
Yesterday we had full
Better?
outage, so it's fine.
Okay. All right. Thanks, everyone. Apologies for the technical difficulties. So, why cyber liability should be discussed with insureds? And as I was saying before we tried to get Lucas involved, is this is an area of risk that is affecting every single entity at the moment. And you can see here, it's law firms, very high risk industry, as well as medical practices, retailers, accountants, hospitality business, real estate agencies, etc. So it's affecting a broad spectrum of different companies and entities in our marketplace, which we are seeing. And there's key reasons for that, because the way that the threat actors are going out and trying to basically make money by committing these ransomware attacks and cyber breaches is specifically aimed at data collection. And the reason why they're aiming at data collection, and that is specifically the data that you are holding of data subjects. So that is very important information, and that is what they use to make money out of this kind of fraud. So the first step is always to do a ransomware attack. So they steal your data subjects information and they hold that information to ransom. And the reason they do that is basically a blackmail trend. But the second step of that is, if you're not paying the ransom, is they can use that information to sell on the dark web as well. So they go after any entity that holds third-party data subjects information. So you'll see law firms are key because they hold sensitive data, and once they've extracted that information, they can use that information on the dark web, take out credit applications, get proprietary information, trademark information, secret information that shouldn't be disclosed to public. So they can use that as a blackmail tool against the data subjects themselves, as well as credit card payment information, invoicing information as such. So all that information is used to either hold at ransom or sell on the dark web if the ransomware is not being paid. So you can see it's across different industries, governments being the most affected, manufacturing second most affected, technology, etc. So basically, the point that I'm trying to make here is any company that is running a business in this country or around the world that is using emails, data, payment processing information is at risk now for a cyber breach and a cyber attack. So we think it's very important that insureds and brokers start looking at and considering cyber liability insurance to get in place, so that should they ever be faced with one of these situations where they turn on their computer and they have no access to any information on their computers, and the little pop-up comes and says your accounts have been attacked and are subject to ransomware and you have to pay the ransomware amount, that is where people like Lucas would get involved to try and assist the insured. A, to pay the ransom and get back as much data as possible. B, to protect the data subjects that have been impacted by such a breach which has taken place. And there's various different ways to protect those data subjects once their information has been subject to a cyber breach. We have Lucas and his team, they have dark web monitoring tools that will monitor the affected data subjects information. So if that information is out there on the dark web, if they're trying to sell that information, we would be able to pick that up, and we would be able to notify the data subjects of any credit applications that are taking place in their name to try and stop any further damage taking place. And that is one of the key components to the policy response as well, is third-party loss that has been suffered. So another key aspect on cyber security and some developments that have been taking place is from the FSCA side. So I understand that there's a lot of brokers that are present in this conversation, and you may not be aware, but this is something that the FSCA and the Prudential Authority have been pushing for, and they have told financial institutions in a joint statement that on cybersecurity and cyber resilience, they are wanting to implement joint standards across the board for FSCA members, and likely to commence in June 2025 of this year. It hasn't come into effect that we know of as yet, but the key recap of what they are wanting to implement for FSCA financial institutions is a joint standard on cybersecurity strategy and framework to articulate how financial institutions will identify cyber risks and determine the controls to keep those risks within acceptable limits. So conduct risk assessment, critical operations and information assets, maintain incident response plans. So that is a key area that needs to be developed. What is your response plan? If you are impacted by a cyber breach, have you already determined a cyber breach plan with board level oversight of what steps to take, who you're going to contact, what insurances you have in place, and who are the key individuals that need to be involved once a cyber breach has taken place? So conduct annual cyber awareness training as well. So a duty on financial institutions to train all staff so that they're aware of what phishing attacks look like, what cyber breaches look like. Unfortunately, most of these breaches are as a result of human error, and that's why this cyber training is very important for everyone. Manage third-party risk, so outsource vendors must also comply with cyber security standards, and report material cyber incidents. So this reporting will now also be to the FSCA and the PA, on top of your normal reporting to the regulator who runs the POPIA. That's specifically related to any breaches of the sensitive data that you are holding. Obviously, the moment that you're subject to a ransomware attack, you have to notify POPIA of all the data subjects that have been impacted as a result. So the key question, where to start, and that is with cyber liability insurance. So you'll see in most policies, once you start looking into this area, that splits up into two sections, first-party cover and third-party liability cover. And the first-party cover is always your key aspect in dealing with a cyber breach, because this is the area that's going to reduce your risk, minimize the impact, and protect those data subjects that have been impacted as a result of a cyber breach. So you have data breach response, and this is the key. This is where Lucas and his team would get involved. So this is the experts investigation and reporting, as well as regulatory compliance support. So there we get attorneys to assist so that they can draft the necessary memos to update the regulatory bodies of which data subjects have been impacted. Then including your credit and identity monitoring of affected individuals, reputational management. So this is more for large corporate entities where they have a big name brand in the marketplace, and it's important to monitor their reputational management. Legal defense costs. So legal defense costs would tie into third-party liability cover, and insurable fines and penalties. So insurable fines and penalties, that goes back to POPIA, and that includes if POPIA is going to put a fine on you for the breach of the data penalties. We haven't seen a lot of activity in this space as yet, but we anticipate that this is going to be developing and growing in future as the regulatory bodies get more involved in these cyber breaches. Cyber extortion and business interruption, also two key areas of the cover, as well as restoration costs. So your cyber extortion, that is your ransom payments. So when we're seeing these events taking place, very often the ransomware that's being asked can be quite excessive. We haven't seen any ransoms called for less than $1 million US, normally paid in Bitcoin. And we've seen them go up as high as $3 million US. So that's a key concept in the cover that you would need to look at and consider. Do you have enough cover when taking out a policy? Restoration costs. So there, Lucas and his team, as well as Ciandro Forensics, that's something that they specialize in. So it's a detailed analysis of all your data in order to make sure that you can restore everything to the point that you were before the cyber event took place. This can be quite a tedious and time-consuming process and involves a lot of forensic analysis to compare the different data sets to make sure that everything is back up and running where it was. And key to the cover as well is your business interruption. So for your down period, covering those losses while you are unable to function, because that is unfortunately something that happens the moment you are locked out, ransomware held, your company comes to an immediate standstill and you're not able to function, answer emails, process, pay invoicing. And in some industries, if you're in development and your technology that produces manufacturing stock, etc., that could also come to a halt, including your HR payrolls, etc. So your whole company comes to a standstill. And that's why it's so important to investigate, look at cyber liability, and ensure that you have the proper limits in place. I'm just trying to see, I think I'll call it here and maybe open for some questions. I think I may have used up our time already. I'm going to look if there's any.
Colin, can you hear me?
Oh, there. Okay. Hi, Lucas.
I'm on voice. Apologies, guys. I'm off site today, and the connection was really, really dodgy. Up to last year, about 40% of South African organizations entered into negotiations and paid the ransom. That has increased to about 71% over the last 12 months, which is in line with what we see globally. There is a move towards payment and in some cases, not traditional recovery methods. That's not necessarily better or faster, but it seemed to be favored by organizations as more predictable.
So do you think there's a growing trend then, Lucas, of people refusing to pay ransomwares?
In Europe, yes. In the US and South Africa, no. In our case, it actually has been increasing significantly, the prevalence of ransom payments.
Okay. And the ransom payments that you're seeing are in the range over $1 million US, or are you seeing lesser amounts being asked as well?
Over the last 5 years, we've seen anything from 200,000 to 10 million rand. In the last year, the most recent one I saw that was outlandish was $5 million US, which on the day calculated to 92,500,000 rand. The single biggest local payment we have facilitated was 30 million. That puts it into perspective, I think.
Yeah, no, it is definitely. So I do see some questions. So is it standard routine to actually pay the ransom? And I think we are seeing that, yes. If there is guarantees that the data can be restored and your backups have been intruded into as well, so you don't have access to your backups anymore, then correct me if I'm wrong, that does seem to be something that we are doing in order to get the insured back up and running.
Indeed, as much as we have moral and ethical opinions about paying the ransom, in 90%, often more than 90% of the cases we get involved in, there is some reason why recovery with backups is problematic. They either failed or they were poisoned by the attackers, or the information was exfiltrated and it's so sensitive and the implications thereof are so far-reaching that the company would rather pay the settlement to the attackers to suppress the publication thereof. So there are a number of factors and it has to be assessed on a case-by-case basis.
Yeah. Yeah, so what we've seen on the claim side is it depends. We've seen insureds that thankfully had backups in place and were not willing to pay the ransomware. But we've seen other insureds where literally every single piece of information they had been impacted, and they had no choice but to pay the ransomware. Otherwise, they would have to start from scratch with no information, no client lists, no invoicing, no HR payrolls, no data whatsoever, as well as the added risk of that information becoming public information or being published on the dark web to be used for all sorts of other purposes. I'm just seeing what other questions. So yeah, a question there, Europe decreasing paying ransom. So there, I believe, so it was UK and the EU, and there the governments have taken a stance that they will not pay ransom, as far as I'm aware, if their systems are impacted. It isn't illegal, as far as I'm aware, in the EU not to pay ransom, but there are other complications when coming to pay ransom that one needs to take into account. And that's also why you need the experts involved. Like the whole ransom discussions, negotiations is very technical. It is not illegal in South Africa to pay, but you may be breaching certain SARS or the South African Reserve Bank rules by making payments. So there again, you need key experts to assist you in that process, because you could be paying money over to a terrorist organization, which is obviously illegal in South Africa. So there are some complexities to ransomware. I wouldn't advise ever attempting to do it yourself. You need to get someone like Lucas and his team to assist you in that whole process. And they would also have attorneys involved to just make sure that you're not stepping outside the bounds of the law when dealing with these situations.
Yeah. I think I can only concur, Colin. I mean, there's a question at the back there. Do you believe ransoms would increase the crime? The reality is, obviously, these threat actors are people like us, not exactly like us, but they are people. They have families, they have wishes and wants, and they need to sustain a lifestyle, so they take some profit. But for the most part, they're also businesses, and paying them ransom allows them to fund further criminality and perpetuate similar acts on other victims. Now, that's partly why we definitely don't want anybody to be in this position to begin with, and that's why we try and help as much as possible to put the preventative measures in place. But sometimes, if I could use the cliche, the horse has bolted, the information was taken, the impact is severe, and the only practical business decision in that moment is to negotiate with the criminals, which is not ideal, but it comes down to a business decision.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And I think just to highlight the increased activity that we're seeing in the cyberspace, and what we're seeing as well is insureds don't seem to have high enough limits to deal with the impact of these events, specifically the business interruption costs. I mean, if you're down we've seen companies down for 3 weeks of no activity. You can just imagine what your financial implications are of such an event. And, never mind potential third-party liability claims that could be coming after the event has taken place as a result of you losing sensitive data. It is just a key area that everyone is going to be impacted. Everyone needs to be aware of, and everyone needs to start taking active steps in getting cover in place and taking proactive steps to protect themselves from this occurring.
Yes.
I didn't see the last question.
From Gino, dear. Happy to take that.
Okay.
So, ransom as a service is not a new idea. And the fact that these are organized businesses, similarly, not a new idea. I just think most people never considered that the hackers are, in fact, multinational organizations with very organized way of doing things. And in the same way that we have optimized businesses in our world, they have done the same. Initial access brokers do nothing but break into networks and then sell that access to somebody else who might be interested in perpetuating some kind of attack on the company using the access. They then look around to see what information is available and whether there's some juicy bits and whether it's a good target. Once they've done their recon, then they would contract a ransom as a service platform, and they would literally buy some time, like you would buy processing from AWS. And they then buy into the platform and they execute the malware, follow the process as prescribed by that particular ransom as a service operator. And then ultimately it even goes further. So once they then encrypt the data and exfiltrate and effectively extort you, they also have people who would put pressure on the negotiations on their behalf to get you to pay the money. And ultimately, towards the end, they then have all of the mechanisms in place to move that money, launder that money, scrub it through the various layers of processing, and ultimately have it paid out in normal currency or vouchers in some other way to get their hands on it. So this is very much a formal and a structured process, and ransom as a service is very prevalent.
Yeah. So just I see a lot of questions coming up about the type of cover and is it available and how does it work and what steps, like, are your services available prior to the cyber incident. So part of the underwriting process for cyber policy, specifically for companies, and there's a vast range from small and medium companies up to your large corporate entities. But in that proposal form, there's a reason for the questions that are being asked and the minimum requirements that are being posed towards the insureds. And that is so that you can get your systems up to a best case scenario in order to try and prevent these attacks from taking place. So you'll see a list of all the minimums required. It's your password links. Are you changing your passwords? Are you updating your patches on a regular basis, as well as some other information about how many data subjects information you're holding and what type of data subjects information you're holding. So that is an outline of the key steps that you take to get yourself in line. So there's a lot of different policies on the market and lots of other insurers as well that are all providing. And a lot of them have the resources that you can talk to of what can I do? Is my antivirus up to date? Are these things correctly done? You can speak to your IT service providers, and there are other resources that you can contact as well in order to try and take the most preventative steps in order to prevent this loss from taking place.
Well, if you don't mind, I'll answer some of the questions again. So there's a question about whether there's backups and what happens to the information. So, we always say we deal with criminals and we can't guarantee anything, but there's one thing I can absolutely guarantee. If they took the information from the network and you do not pay them money, they will publish that information. They will make it available on the dark web, often for free, so anybody can download it. Sometimes they sell it on, they turn it into little data packs that they can sell to other people to perpetuate more crime, but they will publish the information, and which is often the motivation for companies globally, not just in South Africa, to consider paying the ransom. It's not about recovery anymore. It's about suppressing the publication of the data to protect their clients, their stakeholders, and employees. So I'll answer that one, and then Colin spoke about whether you can't simply pay the ransom, consider the implications thereof. So I can unpack that in a little bit more detail. As he said, paying the ransom right now isn't necessarily illegal in South Africa. There are a few hoops you have to jump through. The first one is moving large amounts of currency out of the country is potentially
Oh, lost you again.
reaching foreign currency regulation and other entities' point of view on that.
Yeah,
Right?
can hear you again.
Okay, there we go. So most of these payments take place in Bitcoin, and at the moment, there's no way to demonstrate that if I buy Bitcoin that I've moved money out of the country, which it's a bit of a loophole in that process. Reserve Bank is working on changing regulation to the point where if you can't prove that it is in the country, then it's assumed to have left the country. So that would make things a little bit more difficult for ransom payments. But then on top of that, there are global blacklists that one has to check against. So Colin mentioned you don't want to fund terrorism. In one particular case now, we have to consider that the Office of Foreign Asset Control in the US Treasury, the OFAC list, lists all known terrorist organizations that the US government don't want to receive any funding. So you have to make sure that the entity you deal with isn't on that list or any of the other blacklists around the world from different countries, that you're not willingly paying a blacklisted entity or known terrorist organization. That is something. It's not even a question whether it's illegal in South Africa. The FBI will come fetch us if we make that payment. We cannot be funding terrorism, but the criminals are aware of this, and generally they issue Bitcoin wallets and identities, etc., that's not linked to anything. But there is an extensive list of checks and clearances that one has to go through before ransom payments made. So definitely not something to be undertaken lightly. And one of the things I would just add as a last comment, the reason why we talk about preparedness and the reason why that has such a huge impact on the outcome of the event, often these conversations are left for during the breach. And during the breach is the worst possible time for senior executives and board members to be having a conversation about contentious topics like whether we pay the ransom or how we go about it, whether we have somebody on board that can assist us, etc. So we always tell them, first of all, Colin said, take out insurance, understand what your insurance covers, understand what's in your toolkit. So when you are breached, you are able to leverage it and deploy those tools properly. Make the decisions you need to make about whether to negotiate or not, and to what extent you would, under which conditions you would, understand who's authorized, have those discussions at board level, have the resolution signed off and in place, so you don't have to do this during the attack, because the battlefield of a cyber attack, I always say, is not conducive to constructive debate. Don't leave it for them. That's too late.
Yeah, so it's preemptive steps, which actually are the key factors in success when dealing with a cyber attack, because you've already thought about the processes that you're going to follow, whether or not you're going to pay the ransom, and what steps you'll take thereafter. So that's always an important aspect, is not waiting until the incident has happened, but being proactive in the planning for an event such as this.
Absolutely. In the latest IBM cost of a data breach report for the period ending in 2025, they say that those companies who have an incident response plan and who have regularly exercised that plan to improve their efficiency spend as much as 61% less on cyber attacks, less than half of their peers, because they know what to do. They've practiced it. Everybody knows exactly what their roles are and what outcomes they are responsible for. So definitely critically important. There's one last question about the ransom, which I'll quickly take. Yeah, I will always start the conversation by saying we don't advocate paying the ransom. It's a last resort. It has to be a business decision. The second part of the conversation starts with we are dealing with criminal entities that cannot be trusted, ever. We know that up front as we go into that conversation. But there is a but, an opposite to this argument. This is for them a business. This is how they generate revenue. If they let us pay a ransom and they do not adhere to the terms that we've agreed to in the negotiation, we will tell everybody that that particular threat actor cannot be trusted, that they will not honor their commitments, and that you should never negotiate with them. They know this. This will erode their business model. This will stop their revenue stream. For that reason, the thing that drives them to deliver to the commitments they've agreed in the terms during negotiation is their reputation.
Unfortunately, your sound is breaking up again, Lucas. But yeah, I think
it's not much, but it has seen Africa, and in our organization, we have a 100% recovery rate when ransoms are paid. We've never had, often it includes an expanded list of to recover the data. Yeah, Colin?
Hello. Sorry. Yeah, you're breaking up a little bit there, Lucas. But I think
Okay, no worries.
yeah, we're almost ready to sign off. Just a key point that you were mentioning there is that the ransom threat actors, it's important that their name and reputation is kept to the point that they are reliable to return your data once paying the ransom. And if you don't, then you let that be known to all the notice boards on the dark web, etc., that this specific threat actor does not return the information once ransomware is being paid. So, I mean, that just shows you again, it is an organized crime. These people are doing it as their business models to infiltrate, to steal data, to get out as much money as quickly as possible from you. And that is obviously their key focus is on the ransomware attack and those negotiations. So as you said, if they don't give the data back, then that would ruin their reputation in the market for other threats that they impose on any other affected clients. So it's a fascinating area, a dark world that hopefully no one gets to experience firsthand. But from dealing with certain insureds that have dealt with this firsthand, it is an extremely traumatic event to take place. You're going nights and days without sleep and panic because literally your whole company is on the brink of collapse. And that is one of the implications of suffering a ransomware attack. So it's always important to rather take proactive steps so that you know what you're going to do and how to deal with the situation, and you have the necessary experts in line and you know who to talk to when you're faced with the situation. And that is key. That's where the insurance aspect of this comes in due to the technical nature of this kind of event.
Excellent. I've posted answers to 2 of the questions, just in one thing. But this is obviously a topic we can talk about much more. It is far more complex and unpredictable than most people assume prior to them dealing with it. And it's not something that should be left until the last minute to prepare for. One of the reasons we wanted to talk today was about the psychological impact, but there's an absolute direct relationship between the impact these attacks have on individuals from a psychological point of view, the PTSD they suffer and everything else that we've observed, and the preparedness that existed in the organization prior to the attack. And that links also to the impact and the cost, which is something that all of us want to see improve. So preparation is fundamentally important.
Yeah, being prepared is definitely key in these scenarios. Thank you. I think that concludes our discussion for today. Once again, we apologize for the technical difficulties we had. That just happens sometimes, and we roll with it. And I hope that we've still given you an informative discussion and things to think about, and that you'll consider getting your clients cyber cover or start exploring cyber cover to understand how it works, and reach out to us. Our contact details are on our main website if you need more information.
Santam, we thank you for being our event partner today, for sending us such a well informed, experienced, and wonderful speakers. And we have reached the last speaker of the day, our keynote speaker, Kayla Gous, wellness coach. Are you okay? Now, let me just talk a little bit about this. It's not just any wellness coach. Kayla is going to talk to us about mental health in the boardroom, leading with empathy. It is so topical, and often these are the qualities that women do bring to the table. So we started out our day with 2 speakers, female executives, and we ended off with a talk about mental health in the boardroom. Kyla's journey into mental health advocacy began with a deep passion for people and their well-being. She's worked over the years with individuals navigating a wide range of difficulties, from substance abuse and disordered eating to trauma, anxiety, and depression. These experiences reinforce the full recovery and resilience come from compassion, understanding, and accessible support. Kyla joined Are You OK? When she joined. She saw an opportunity to make that kind of support more widely available. Let me just tell you, if ever I needed, personally in my career, emotional support and guidance was when I found myself in the boardroom. I have had some really challenging situations unfold over the last 3 decades, and we didn't really ever talk about it. So through her work with Are You OK? Kyla has witnessed firsthand the transformative ripple effects that priority. Oh, now have I used up all my English words. Let me try that again. Kyla has witnessed firsthand the transformative ripple effects that prioritizing mental health can have, not just for individuals, but across organizations. So mental health in the boardroom, our final speaker for today, Kyla, leading with empathy.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much, Christelle, for that lovely introduction. It's so good to be here with you today, especially since it's October and it's Mental Health Awareness Month. It's so special for me to be able to join a conversation like this from a mental health perspective. Now, as you've heard from my introduction, I will be talking about mental health in the workplace. And I know that immediately some of you might be thinking, oh no, here we go. But don't worry, I'm not going to make you sing Kumbaya or start a group therapy session. But here's the thing. Mental health has become such a buzzword that it can sound more like a PR strategy than a practical conversation, right? And for many professionals, especially those managing teams, it can feel like a minefield, right? What can I say? What can't I say? So today I want to take the scary out of it, and I want to show you that focusing on mental health in the workplace isn't just about well-being. It's about performance in the workplace, right? It's about business performance. It's about leadership and success. In other words, it's not a distraction from work. It's the foundation that allows great work to happen. So I want to put forward and explore why our workplaces must do better for our brains. Why mental health is not a soft issue, but a business critical one. Why it's time for the recognition and accommodation of mental health care to move from the margins to the center of how we work. Now, I want to start with a phrase that you've probably heard before. Don't bring your home life to work. It sounds good in theory, right? But here's the thing. Life doesn't come with compartments. What happens at home affects how we show up at work, and what happens at work follows us home. It doesn't matter how hard we try, it's not possible for us to avoid this overlap altogether. For years, leaders were told to leave feelings out of the boardroom, but honestly, and this is something our CEO at Are You OK? Loves to say, that's so 2000s. Because whether you're managing a call center team, assessing claims, or sitting at an executive meeting, right? One thing is constant. You are leading humans. And humans are emotional. In the insurance world, we talk a lot about risk, protection, and coverage. But how often do we talk about protecting our people, their well-being, their mental health, their capacity to keep showing up for clients every single day? And that's what I want to talk about today. Because empathy, real human empathy, isn't soft, it's smart, strategic, and absolutely essential for modern leadership. Empathy in leadership means seeing your team not just as employees, but as people. It's about understanding what sits behind the performance metrics, the claims process, the policy sold. It's about leading with awareness and not just data. Now, I want to share with you a framework that helps us understand this a bit more deeply. It's called the biopsychosocial model of health. It says that our well-being isn't made up of one part, not just biology, not just mindset, but a complex interconnected system of three spheres: the biological, the psychological, and the social sphere. In other words, our physical health, our mental health, and our emotional state, and our relationships and environment. These three areas don't operate in isolation. They're not dominoes in a straight line where if one falls over, it knocks the others over in order. They're more like a triangle or a feedback loop, where one side is constantly affected and affects the other side. We tend to treat them like a one-way chain. The body affects the mind. That's easy to understand, right? When you're physically unwell, it will affect your mental state and your mood, your feelings. We accept that without question. But the mind affects the body just as powerfully, and both affect how we function in the world around us. Psychological illness also affects our bodies, our finances, and our relationships. This model only works if we honor each part equally. So when we ignore mental health, we're not just missing a piece, we're breaking down the whole system. And that brings me to the heart of this conversation. Mental health is health, full stop. A family member told me recently about a colleague of hers who was booked off from work for brain swelling caused by burnout. Think about that for a second. Burnout literally manifesting in the body. We wouldn't ask someone with a broken leg to run a marathon. We would never expect someone with pneumonia to just keep powering through. So why do we expect someone struggling with anxiety, depression, or burnout to keep performing as if nothing is wrong? Our brains are our operating systems. When they're not functioning optimally, nothing functions optimally. According to the World Health Organization, depression and anxiety alone cost the global economy an estimated $1 trillion each year in lost productivity. That's trillion with a T. And closer to home in South Africa, depression alone costs the economy over 232 billion rand each year in lost productivity. That's 5.7% of our GDP, gone because of untreated or unsupported mental health challenges in the workplace. That's not just about absenteeism, so people staying home from work. It's also about presenteeism, which is people showing up to work but performing far below their capacity because they're mentally unwell. Mental health isn't a personal issue that ends at the office door. It follows us to meetings, to emails, to deadlines, and decisions. And ignoring it has real consequences. And here's the thing, these are not rare cases. One study found that 1 in 4 South Africans will experience a mental disorder in their lifetime. That means that in every team, every department, every office, someone is carrying something heavy right now. Now, having empathy as a leader in the workplace doesn't mean becoming everyone's counselor. It means listening without judgment, responding with care, and making decisions with humans and not just the bottom line in mind. When leaders lead with empathy, they build psychological safety. And that's where high performance truly begins. Because when people feel safe to speak up, they admit that they're overwhelmed, they share an idea that might fail, that's when innovation happens. It's the difference between a culture of fear and a culture of trust. I often ask leaders, when was the last time someone truly listened to you? No agenda, no interruption, just listened. Think about that for a second. How did that feel? That feeling, being seen, heard, and understood, is what fuels engagement. Engaged people communicate better, they collaborate better, and they stay longer. Empathy builds loyalty, not because it's soft, but because it's human logic. If we shift this to the client's perspective, as part of a value-added service to insurance companies, Are You OK offers trauma support to victims who claim for traumatic incidents. And when I give them that initial call to say that I'm phoning on behalf of their insurer, and I just ask them if they're okay, the response is always so humbling. And it breeds a loyalty to an insurer who really cares. This works exactly the same within teams as it does between service provider and client. Now, let's be honest. Work can be hard on the human spirit. In fact, research shows that South Africans are among the most stressed workers in the world. We're ranked second globally for work-related stress, behind only Japan. That shocked me. And why is this? Because many of our work environments are high pressure and low support. We're talking unrealistic deadlines, micromanagement, lack of recognition, job insecurity, racial and gender discrimination. The South African Depression and Anxiety Group reports a sharp increase in calls from employees who are overwhelmed by toxic work environments, burnout, and mental exhaustion. Work shouldn't break people, but too often it does. And when people don't feel psychologically safe, when they're afraid to speak up, ask for help, or take a mental health day, it creates a culture of quiet suffering. And that suffering erodes everything: morale, innovation, loyalty, and performance. Empathy is the antidote, but it's also a strategy. I've mentioned this a few times now, but let's take a moment to really look at this in the context of the South African workforce. Now, first off, let me be clear. Employers should care because that's the right thing to do. But even if you're only looking at the numbers, there's quite a compelling business case. Absenteeism linked to mental health challenges costs our economy up to 19.1 billion rand a year. And presenteeism, remember when I explained where people show up but they perform poorly because they're struggling, adds another 235 billion rand in losses. Now let's bring that down to the team level. When a mentally unwell employee isn't supported, what happens? They disengage, they underperform, and they leave. And your organization loses time, talent, and trust. But here's the good news. When employees feel mentally supported, the benefits are immediate and measurable. Lower turnover, higher engagement, better teamwork, and fewer sick days. A 2023 Mindshare Partner study found that 76% of employees consider mental health support when evaluating whether to stay at a job. Employees who feel psychologically supported are more than twice as likely to be engaged in their work. And mental health accommodations, like flexible scheduling or therapy support, have been shown to reduce sick days and improve focus at work. Your best people won't stay where they don't feel seen or supported. In today's competitive hiring market, psychological safety is not a luxury. It's a competitive advantage. And in insurance, where trust is everything, empathy isn't just an HR initiative. It's a client strategy. Because how your team feels internally determines how they show up externally. A client may forget the details of a policy, but they'll never forget how your people made them feel in a moment of loss, stress, or fear. When empathy exists inside your culture, it becomes your brand experience. So yes, empathy is good for people, but it's also very, very good for business. We often say we care about mental health, but what does that actually mean in the workplace? At the start of this talk, I made a call for recognition and accommodation of mental health in the workplace. So let's unpack that a little bit. Recognition means we acknowledge that mental health matters. We don't brush it aside, stigmatize it, or wait for a crisis to respond. It means that mental health is a regular part of the conversation, not a secret struggle. Accommodation means we put that recognition into practice. Just as we would offer a standing desk for someone with back pain, we can offer mental health days, flexible hours, or the option to work from home for someone struggling with anxiety. Examples of this include allowing employees to attend therapy appointments during work hours. This is something that higher ups still struggle to do, and we've seen countless times the positive effects of that 1 hour of therapy during the workday for the rest of the workday. Another example is to train managers to spot early signs of burnout and check in with compassion. Offering employee assistance programs that actually get used because they're easy to access and culturally appropriate. Building a culture where saying I'm not okay doesn't feel like a risk. These do not have to be expensive to be effective. They just have to be intentional. Right now, only about half of South African employees have access to proper mental health support at work. And even fewer of them feel safe using it. That is a gap that we can and must close. And it starts with culture. If people feel like they'll be judged or penalized for their mental health struggles, they'll hide them. Now, leaders, this is where you matter the most. When managers and executives model vulnerability by talking about therapy, needing a break, struggling with something, they give others permission to do the same. Normalize these conversations. Replace tough it out with talk it out. Replace silence with support. Because remember, stigma doesn't reduce the cost of mental illness, it increases it. Now I'm going to repeat that because this is a really important one for me. Stigma doesn't reduce the cost of mental illness, it increases it by delaying care, hiding symptoms, and letting problems fester. Now, we're entering a new era of work, one that's more digital, more hybrid, and more human-centered. And in this era, mental health will be a defining factor of organizational success. Think about Gen Z. According to Deloitte, more than 50% of Gen Z workers have left roles for mental health reasons. They're not just asking for workplace mental health support, they're demanding it. If our workplaces aren't proactive about mental health, we won't just lose productivity, we'll lose our future workforce. Mental health friendly companies attract top talent, boost creativity, and build cultures where people want to stay. The future of work is about workplaces that are human-centered, psychologically safe, and inclusive. If we want innovation, resilience, and high performance at our workplaces, we have to create spaces where people can bring their whole selves to work, including their struggles. The best workplaces of the future will not just manage tasks, they will care for the people doing them. We must make it safe to rest, safe to ask for help, safe to not be okay. This is the future of work. Now, it's easy for empathy to live as a slogan on a wall or a bullet point in your company values, but that alone isn't effective. It has to start at the top with leadership. And not just the CEO, every manager, every team lead has influence. And there are 4 practical ways to lead with empathy. So what can you do starting today? If you're a business owner or a manager, here's what you can do. The first is to listen actively. Ask your people how they're really doing and listen. In Are You OK's work in team facilitation, we've met teams across all levels, from claims handlers to executives. And what we hear most often isn't complaints about pay. It's people saying, I don't feel seen. No one checks in with me after a hard client call, after a hard case, after a difficult day. That's empathy fatigue, and it's very real in this industry. Active listening can change that. Simply asking, how are you coping? And then truly listening, that's leadership presence. The second thing you can do is to invest in training. Empathy is a skill. It can be taught and strengthened. Equip managers to recognize burnout, to have supportive conversations, and to manage conflict without shame or defensiveness. That's how you build teams that are resilient, adaptable, and engaged. The third thing you can do is to make your mental health support visible and normalize its use. Normalize the conversation. Mental health shouldn't be a secret struggle or a performance issue. It's a part of everyday life, and it deserves a space in everyday dialogue, just like physical illness does. Talk about emotional resilience like you talk about compliance or client service, because your team's mental health is both an operational risk and a business opportunity. And the fourth thing you can do is to lead by example. Take mental health seriously in your own life. Model balance and boundaries. Model vulnerability. When leaders share something real, a challenge, a tough week, a small moment of honesty, it gives everyone else permission to be human too. When a manager says, this week has been heavy for me, or I don't have all the answers, people stop only performing and they start connecting. And if you're an employee, speak up. Advocate for what you need. You have the right to feel well at work. Support one another. Remind your workplace that people perform best when they feel safe, seen, and supported. Now, let me share one story that captures what this looks like in action. I worked with a financial services manager. Let's call him David. Results-driven, sharp, proud of his team's performance. But in a leadership workshop, he said, I'm not the most empathic person. My team knows that I care because I push them to achieve. Later, one of his team quietly shared that she'd been struggling with anxiety and almost resigned because she didn't feel safe talking to him. That moment hit him hard. He went back to his team the next week and said, I didn't realize how I was coming across. I want to do better. He didn't launch a program or send an email. He just started checking in, one person at a time. 3 months later, their engagement scores were up. Absenteeism was down. And he told me, I thought empathy would slow me down, but it's actually made everything flow better. That's the ripple effect of empathy. It changes both sides of the conversation. So, what does this mean for you, for the insurance industry, for your teams, for your clients? It means we stop treating mental health as a side issue. We make it a leadership priority. We start leading with heart and strategy. Because they're not opposites, they're partners. You are not machines. Your employees are not machines. You're humans with hearts that break, with minds that bend under pressure, and with brains that deserve care just like any other part of the body. The future of leadership isn't about who can hide emotions best. It's about who can lead with awareness, compassion, and courage. Because every policy, every claim, every client interaction is ultimately about trust. And empathy protects that trust. When empathy sits at the head of the boardroom table, everything changes. Culture, client experience, and performance. So, as we wrap up today, I'd love you to reflect on one question. What would shift in your workplace if empathy became a part of your leadership strategy, not just an afterthought? I'd like you to take that one home with you. And are you okay we believe that empathy is the bridge between well-being and performance? It's not a perk, it's a way of working. And here at InsureTalk, surrounded by people who understand risk better than anyone, maybe it's time we expand the definition of coverage. Because true coverage means protecting not only your clients, but the people who serve them too. If we care about performance, we must care about people. And if we care about people, we must care about mental health. So, thanks again for having me here today. And if anything I shared today sparks a question or even just a thought that you'd like to unpack, please reach out to me via Are You Okay? Whether it's for guidance, collaboration, or simply a chat, we're always happy to keep the conversation going. Let me just end this. There we go. Yes, like I said, we're always happy to keep the conversation going, and I'd love to hear from any of you. Thanks again, and I hope you all have a lovely, restful afternoon. Thank you.
Well, now, like I said when we started out today, this would be the last episode that I have the honor of hosting for the year. We're looking forward to a new year. You have to join us for InsureTalk Live. And I have a sneak peek into the speakers here today. First up, Bright. Thank you. Bright is our event partner. Bright is our headline event partner, and Global Choices, always supporting us, is an event partner. The link to register or buy your tickets will be posted again in the comment section. I think we've posted it a few times today already. Now, the speakers. I'm going to give you a little bit of an insight into who they are, and there might be still some changes because life happens. But as we are stand here today, we have Michael Wanjalani. He's a keynote speaker, founder and CEO of Exponential Growth. Jean-Pierre Holmes, he's the National Head, Specialized Property Division at Bright Insurance. Peter Nall, Sales Director, SADC for Sophos South Africa. And then we have Wimpie van der Merwe, Global Choices CEO. Global Choices is where they understand and get empathy in crisis. I can vouch for that. And I'm extremely excited about our speaker, Lizelle van der Merwe, our CEO of the FIA, and then joining her, Sam Williams, FIA Head of Legal and Regulatory Affairs. She's going to give us, the two of them are going to give us an FIA update. Omni Risks returns were published, and this will have a huge impact on the industry, so that will be unpacked a little bit. And then we have Rianette joining us in the flesh, co-owner and editor of FA News. So it's a fantastic lineup. CPD points will be accredited to all attendees 2 weeks after the session. You can go and register free on the InsureTalk site to get your CPD certificates. It's really, really important that you go and create your profile there. You register once off, and all your InsureTalk CPD certificates for 2025, for the 2025 series, will be listed there throughout the year. It makes it so much easier for CPD and your targets for 2025. It is very important that you must remember to register with the email address you registered for the InsureTalk virtual conference. That's how we link it. Should you have changed from employer or email address, you will have to re-register. Now, that brings me to the end of today's session. Thanks for joining us. Thanks for being part of this journey through another year. I wish you safe travels on the road if you're going down to the coast. I wish you very little wind in the Cape if you're coming here. And we'll see you again early in 2026. That's it. Over and out from me, Christelle Coleman, InsureTalk.